and everybody submits their base bid based on that panel, and that we have two alternates, which we expect would be alternate ads. So it would be alternate A would be an additional cost if we went to the Mission Solar panel in lieu of the Q cell. And alternate B would be the additional cost if we went to the Maxion in lieu of the Q cell. So it would give us the price differential. It would have the contractors in a competitive pricing situation still to price these added costs for these panels. And as Steve had said a little earlier, if the Mission Solar or the Maxion takes us above our budget, we would likely discount those. But in a competitive situation, if it was still within budget, you want to consider the better quality panel, we'd have those prices.
Thanks.
Bob McLaughlin.
In furtherance of the warranty issue, is it backed up with a bond, or are we suing them in Malaysia or the Philippines?
That's a good question. It's usually I don't know if a lawsuit would result, but if the warranty process that we've gone through in the past is actually quite easy, because from a manufacturer's perspective, sending 1, 2, or 3 replacement panels to a site, that's $1,000 off of their books, just written off. They don't tend to fight it. When one of our last SunPower projects, we did actually have 2 damaged modules that were damaged during shipping, and the warranty, the RMA process was quite simple. We took a picture of the module, just held up so they could see the damage, take a close-up picture of the damage, take a picture of the serial number, and just email it to them, and we had our replacement modules, I think, within 2 weeks.
I guess they want to keep a reputation to keep selling their product, huh?
Yep, that's the general idea, is they want to keep their customers happy, and that's the way to do it.
Seems like it must be an extremely competitive market. I can't imagine this number, but off the top of your head, is there a range of the number of manufacturers out there that are making panels these days commercially? I mean, is it 12, 120? I mean, there must be dozens of manufacturers out there that are trying to get into this market, Steve.
Yeah, it's probably I could probably make a list in the next 10 minutes of probably 2 dozen or so. Wow. But there are the ones that get used most common are these Hanwhas and Missions and Maxion. We'll see how common they are, because they're just entering the market. But in the category of the workhorse type of module, you have Q cells, you have Canadian Solar, we have Jinkos, we have JAs.
There's a lot out there.
Yeah, there's quite a number, and you just have to pick one to use as your basis of design, and then adapt from there.
So I'm going to just let people know this is just committee member comments at this time, not the public. Kate, you have your hand up.
Well, thanks, Bill. I just, for the sake of our public viewers and myself, I wonder if you could just contextualize, because we are going to pretty granular detail around warranties and where products are manufactured, which seems a little exceptional to some of the other products that we've looked at in the building, though I do appreciate the level of detail that's being provided. But I wonder if you could just contextualize these kinds of warranties and manufacturing sources and sites relative to some of the other elements of our building.
I can't. And I don't know what you're asking.
Well, I guess, is this exceptional, or is this sort of in keeping with the other kinds of?
Oh, you mean as far as the types of warranties for particular products that our building has other than solar?
Yes, okay. As well as sites of manufacturing and companies we're purchasing from and so forth.
So I'm going to call on Vital or Brian. I mean, we have components in the building that are well outside the U.S.
Yeah, no, there's a lot of materials, like finished materials and such that have come from overseas. Yeah, there's quite a, I don't know a percentage, but there's a lot of materials that at least in the finishes that come from overseas. Warranty wise are also dependent on what the material in the system is. Some which could be anywhere from a year to 10 to, if you're looking at geothermal, there's 50-year warranties on some of the piping in geothermal. So it really depends on the systems you're talking about and what they do for the building.
That's a good question. I want to wrap this up, but I would suspect that this 25-year warranty, Steve, has something to do also with roofing, right? I mean, you don't want something that you want to have them both kind of in the same cycle. And I know our roofing, right, Vital, is in the 20-year range.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Yep, that's almost exactly. Yeah, that's exactly correct. There is a kind of an unspoken rule, a wink and a nod in the industry that you want your roof warranty period to line up nicely with the end of your warranty period for your rooftop solar. Understanding that the lifetime of these systems is generally considered to exceed their warranty period. So even if the warranty on your panel is up at year 25, it's still going to produce power at 80%, probably for the next 5-10 years. There's a pretty good example up in Beverly called Greenergy Park, which was I think 100 kilowatt system deployed during the Jimmy Carter era. That is still has some level of functionality to it.
Tom, I'm going to maybe call on you last here before we move on, but go right ahead.
Thanks. Our roof space on this project is highly constrained. Is there any consideration being given to selecting a panel that perhaps has the highest energy production per sort of square foot of roof? Like, does that factor into the analysis here?
Oh, Steve, you gave me a good lecture on that. Yeah, go right ahead.
Yep. So just from a power density standpoint, that's where the Maxion module comes in. You'll notice the efficiency there is 21.7, just slightly higher than the 21.4 of the Q cell. So that from a kilowatts per square inch or watts per square inch, that's definitely the biggest bang factor. And also we might be able to take a look at it later. The physical layout of the roof, we selected a very high density racking system made by a company called Panel Claw. They're up in Andover, Lawrence area, and it is the most dense from a kilowatt hours per square foot perspective. So the row spacing is extremely tight, not tight enough that you can't still get a foot in there to actually walk between the rows. But it is very compact. It's a 5-degree tilt and about 7 degrees from between the rows. So it's yeah.
So let's put a pause. You're going to go into that in the next section, and that's a really good segue, Tom. But I want to ask the committee because there's sort of approval here. Do we have a comfort level we could approve the recommendation here that the base and then the other two options to increase that and let the solar design folks continue on with their next phase of design with that baseline? That seem reasonable? So I think I don't know. It seems reasonable that we should vote on that we have a baseline of the Q cell. We're going forward with improvements, and we're giving direction there to Solar Design Associates. So maybe if I can motion, we'll approve that, move on.
Joel, motion to approve.
The Q cell is the baseline?
Q cell is the baseline. Again, this will get sorted out in the bid process, correct, Bill?
Oh yeah, this is just what we're putting on the drawings. Yeah.
So it's our basis of design strictly.
Pat.
Pat second. Any other comments before I take a roll call vote? Hearing none. please put your mic on. Committee members, Patrice Garvin,
Yes.
John Phelan,
Yeah, yes.
Pat Baruch,
Yes.
Diane Miller,
Yes.
Tom Caputo,
Yes.
Bill Mooney,
Yes.
Kate Bowen,
Oh, and I.
Jamie Shea. Jamie Shea. Maybe not. Okay. Bob McLaughlin.
Here, sorry. I'm having trouble with my mute button and my unmute button. Yes.
Okay. Chris, Bob McLaughlin,
Yes.
Chris Messer.
Yes.
Welcome, Chris. Mike McAllister,
Yes.
Ellen Schreiber,
Yes.
Bill Lavallo, yes. Okay. Well, this is a segue, and maybe, we have the design here that is hard to see. Okay. And maybe you could just do an overview and then answer some of those questions. There's pictures here. I'll try to zoom in. How's that? And I don't think we need to take and get into, as Kate said, all the details, but maybe an overview, how it works. You've got panels, you've got inverters, you've got kill switches, you got connections to the main disconnect down in the building, right? And then probably start with the racking system. Pretty cool.
Yeah,
Steve?
yeah. Stop me if I start rambling, but yeah, so this is a sample of a typical panel claw system. You'll see it's what they call self-ballasted, meaning the concrete ballast blocks, the CMU blocks are physically what holds the system to the roof, prevents it from moving during wind events and what have you.
So Steve, we're not penetrating the roof thousands of times with connections. We're laying this on the roof and then ballasting it with the blocks.
That is the goal. Yep, and we're chasing that down. Yep. And so this particular array is 10 degrees versus our 5, and the row spacing here is a little bit wider at I think this is 11 or 12 instead of our 7. So our system actually places the ballast underneath the modules in a ballast pan, which allows us to shrink our row spacing and get the highest density on our roof as possible.
Okay, where else do you want to go? I think these diagrams here are not what the committee really needs to go into, but this looks like we're maximizing the roof. I have a picture here of the roof. If you remember in the beginning of the meeting, we had this picture, right? So this is what the committee has been seeing in the community, and then your diagram, boy, even shows the same color.
Okay. From a high-level perspective, the overview of this is using industry best practices combined with international fire code requirements, combined with mass building code requirements. We are maintaining a 6-foot setback from the edge of the roof. We are maintaining a 4-foot setback from mechanical equipment and serviceable equipment in general. The walkway requirements are for a building of this size. We need from a firefighting perspective, an 8-foot walkway every, I think it's 150 feet. So we're doing what we can to maintain that. And as you mentioned, it's a pretty intimate discussion between the design team and the authority having jurisdiction, the building inspector, electrical inspector, and the fire chief in terms of disconnects, kill switches, equipment locations, what have you. So that's an ongoing exercise that's becoming more and more common. On this particular system, we're anticipating the what are called the power electronics, the inverters, to be located on the roof. In the mechanical wells.
One here, and then one. I don't know if people could see this, frankly, but one over here. So they're protected, right? That's why you put them there.
Yeah, exactly. So they're still serviceable because there's access to those locations. They are NEMA 3R rated, so they can be exposed, and from a best practices perspective, we try to keep them off of a south-facing wall so they don't overheat and derate and artificially or accelerate their lifespan. Adjacent to each. Yeah.
Okay. Go ahead. So let me ask you a
Yeah.
question. Let me ask you a question. What does an inverter do? I think I know, but just in 30 seconds.
Yep. So the panels themselves, they produce DC electricity, like a battery. The panels take the aggregated DC electricity and invert that into the 480 volt, 60 hertz electricity that's compatible with your building. So it takes high voltage, 1,000 volts DC, inverts that into 480 volt AC.
So we're going to go right into this design capacity, right? And I know that I am guilty of misusing terms. There's different types of terms here when you talk about rating or production or output maybe on it. And so can you guide us here on first what the different designations are, and then we'll talk about what you think we can maximize this roof to produce?
Yes. So as you mentioned, it is very important to keep these terms correct and separate in your head and when using them in conversations. So we have nameplate ratings of the array in kilowatts. So 1,000 watts is a kilowatt. So there is a nameplate rating of the entire accumulation of panels on the roof. So going back to our previous table, each of these panels, each of these blue rectangles represents a 400 in our basis of design is a 470 watt panel. So under test bench conditions, that panel will produce 470 watts when it's flashed with 1,000 watts per square meter of light intensity. All of those panels added together equates to gives you your DC nameplate rating of your rooftop, and I think we're at what was it, just over a megawatt, so just over 1,000 kilowatts of panels on the roof. The second term to understand, or at least to try to keep separate from kilowatts, is kilowatt hours. And so kilowatts is the power rating, kilowatt hours is the energy rating. So if you have a 1,000 watt microwave or a 1 kilowatt microwave and you left it running for an hour, you would have used up 1 kilowatt hour of energy. So important to keep those terms understood.
So bottom line is okay, do you have one more thing, or I'm going to get right to?
No, you can jump in.
So what is our capacity of the roof then, if you're maximizing this design, which is the roof and available space?
Yeah, can you zoom into that table?
Is that it right here?
Yeah.
So there's a Q, the model is the Q, this is what we just talked about. Yeah.
Yep, so that's the 470 represents the floor of that bin of modules that goes all the way up to 495. And we're cramming 2,353 modules on your roof. So multiply, that quantity of modules times the nameplate of the module is 1.1 megawatts of DC capacity on your roof, or 1,105 kilowatts. Just move the decimal place three places from kilowatt to megawatt.
And so when I was talking about something higher, was I talking about what it can produce versus what it's rated at?
Exactly. So the we did calculate. I don't know if it's captured on this set yet, but we did produce a production estimate that 1.1 megawatts of DC capacity is expected to produce about 1,250 megawatt hours per year. So that's your 1.25 value, 1.25 to 1.3.
So a lot of numbers. In the end, we're producing about 30%, as we heard earlier, of our projected needs with this system.
Correct. Yep. And if when this gets bid out, the contractors come back and say, Well, yeah, 470s are available, but we can also get 480s, or we can get 490s. From an electrical standpoint, it still works with our basis of design, and if it works from the budget perspective, we just get more kilowatt hours at the end of year one.
That's like a 5% change. But does a panel that has a higher rating cost a little more than a panel that like that's 470? If you had a 480 or 490 panel?
Correct. The way equipment and materials in the solar industry is priced, they use they being distributors, they use dollars per watt to cost out equipment. So I think in that table we estimated these like somewhere in the 60 cents per watt. Yep. Range. So, do that math out and you'll figure out roughly how much a 470 watt panel would cost. And that math should hold for a 490 watt as well.
Okay. So this was helpful. Committee members, you have questions on the design? And
I have a question. When you showed the picture, the panels did not appear to be raised at the appropriate level to maximize at this latitude the amount of power they get from the sun. I assume that's done because you want to get more panels on the roof. But when a panel is it rated at the level that is tilted, or is it rated at what its maximum would be if it was tilted directly to get a direct sun ray?
Steve,
yep, good question.
I learned another term I think you're going to tell us about, right?
So the rating of the panels, in this case 470 watts, that's done under what's called standard test conditions by the manufacturer, and that's I think it's 20 degrees Celsius, 1 atmosphere, and 1,000 watts per square meter of light intensity. So when they flash that panel with that amount of light under those test conditions, the light is perpendicular to the panel. The rating of that panel, or they literally stick a meter on the leads of the panel, and they see 470 watts. So that's how the panel gets its rating. From a efficiency standpoint, in terms of tilt angle, you are correct. At this latitude, ultimately the panel, in order to be the most efficient, it wants to be perfectly perpendicular to the sun at all times. I think some, if not a plurality of people here have seen pole-mounted systems before that are called dual-axis trackers, and they do have a GPS-based algorithm in them, and a series of worm gears and what have you that actually track the path of the sun over the course of the day and keep those panels perfectly perpendicular. That is by far the most efficient way to deploy PV. It's also by far the most expensive. This method of 5 or a 5 or a 10 degree racking system with compressed row spacing gives us the most energy, they call it energy density. So how much kilowatt hours can you squeeze out of each square foot of your roof surface? And it's kind of a pendulum. It swings one way a bit, swings the other way a bit. But the goal is to prevent one row from shading its northern neighbor, and also arrive at a tilt angle that maximizes, that allows you to avoid that self-shading, and also allows you to put as much PV on the roof as possible. Back 8 or so years ago, when panels were about 8 times as expensive, we were much more careful in terms of maximizing the exposure of the panel. So you would see systems on a roof that were 30 degrees and spaced apart much further to get the most kilowatt hours out of that array. And the industry shifted away from that because the cost of solar has come down quite a bit, and also building codes have changed quite a bit as well, as I'm sure Bill is
the wind issue.
Very, very aware. Yeah. So from a wind loading and a snow loading perspective, the industry was able to figure out that if we keep a ultra low profile on the roof. We help eliminate or reduce the structural concerns from snow drifting as well.
Good question. Hey, Tom, you got your question?
Yeah, it just refreshed my memory. I think we've talked about it previously, and it had to do with the design, but we're not putting panels on the field house roof because of the sort of engineering limitations of that section of the building. Is that right?
I keep getting questions on that. How about that west-facing roof? How come we don't have them on? That's exactly it. Their team looked at that. There would be a loading issue. There's a roofing issue, right? That roof is not new, so loading up the panels it wasn't that advantageous. It would, yeah, we'd get energy from it, but we'd have to reinforce the roof, which would be quite a premium to do. That was out of scope. And again, to be clear, Tom, right? This was this was never shown back here, right? So that this was maximizing the new roof is what we've always claimed to do.
Yeah, I remember that discussion previously in the design, and I know we contemplated it, but we eliminated it, I think, for ultimately cost reasons. But
it's good to bring it up because we've had a lot of discussions over the years, and people listening today may not have been aware of that. So that's a good question.
Great,
Ellen.
Thanks. Yeah. So I have two questions. The first one is kind of little, but you said that we're putting these 7 inches apart. And I'm looking at my foot. I mean, can somebody really get in there to work and replace one of these units with these rows only 7 inches apart?
Short answer is yes. It definitely is possible. I was up on ironically, I was up on a roof this past Monday doing some troubleshooting on a system exactly like this. And with that tighter row spacing, keep in mind the ballast blocks are underneath the panels in that instance, but we still do have that. You'll notice these blocks sit in it's an aluminum tray that does double duty as a ballast tray and also a wind deflector. So on that tighter row spacing system, if you got a big old boot on, you would likely have to pull, remove those wind deflectors when you're doing work on the array, which is it's quite easy. It's in this instance it was just it's an M6 bolt, so you just grab a 10 millimeter socket, chuck it into your impact drill, and go from there.
So you got it. That Steve's very technical. You got a second question?
Yeah, actually I have two. So does someone have to get up here and shovel snow off of that?
Short answer is no. If your building is in danger, I think it was maybe 5 years ago when we had.
Right.
Yeah.
No, I think she means, yeah. So what Ellen's talking about is to make these work. The last thing we want to do is have people walk up on this roof with shovels. It's just way wrong. And this, so the roof system, the industry, right? These are dark. They melt pretty quick and they run off, right? Is that how it works, Steve?
That is correct. Yep. So they do shed. And that's one of the reasons for the 5 or 10 degree tilt angle. Anything below that just holds the snow. The 5 degrees is considered the minimum tilt angle to get the snow to shed, and it's a pretty neat phenomenon actually. When you go up on the roof after a light snow, the sun's out, you can actually brush the snow off of one corner of the module, and that actually because the cells are dark, they actually start heating up themselves and then heating their neighbors up as well. So the panels self-shed. And like you mentioned, unless it's emergency conditions, you do not want to send a crew of guys up here with metal edged snow shovels, and if the snow is deep enough, you can't see where the modules are anyway, so they're going to be walking on a slippery glass surface, falling all over each other, and damaging equipment.
Not to mention damaging our membrane roof. So no shovels on the roof. We got to put a sign.
And then the third question, and it's not it's only partially related to the design. I was asking earlier about the add alternates, and I'm looking at all of these. I know you said that there were more than 1,000 of them up on the roof. I thought we were going to be bidding this in chunks. So like there was a base of, I'm making the numbers up, let's say 800 and then another 100 and then another 100 is add alternates. But if we're doing the add alternates in the sort of quality of the panels that we're choosing, then I'm guessing that means we can't do it in quantity. And this may be the wrong time to ask this question, Bill. This may be later, but I'm sort of curious how we're going to structure this bid.
Right, so we're not ready, we're not there yet.
Okay.
So we're not going out to bid. The committee has to approve the bid. We are talking to Solar Design Associates about how to bid within a budget, and they know that that's the goal of this project. So you're right in saying, if we have 2,400. So do we have a base bid of 2,000, and then how are all the permutations? So I think that's going to be better for our next, like this is preliminary design. So I would propose that our next meeting with Solar Design, where we talk more about the bidding process. We're gonna go over it quickly today, but not into that, how we're packaging it. That's the next meeting.
Thank you.
In June. Okay. Thank you. Kate?
Two quick questions. My understanding on panels on roofs is they often extend the life of the roof. And I wondered if there was, some kind of number that we could gauge for that, because I think it would be helpful to have an understanding of that. And also, is it the case that those panels would potentially reduce the heat that's associated with those flat blacktop roofs? I know currently the average temp is fairly high, or it was on the old building, so I'm wondering about that.
Yeah, let me just start by saying our roof is super white. So white that you need sunglasses. I was up there a couple weeks ago on a sunny day, and you need it's very, very white. So we don't have that. These are going to be the darkest thing on the roof. But you do bring up a good point that they're reducing the solar impacts to the roof, which degrades the roof. So I don't know, Steve or anybody, if they have a knowledge of that, what that would do. There's still sections of our roof that are not covered. So, yeah, but it's a good point. It would help on the seams.
There is anecdotal evidence of that. I haven't seen any industry publications that actually dive into that yet. I do know, as you from a heat gain perspective, putting these on an existing building, there usually are comments after the fact, a year afterwards, that hey, my cooling bill was marginally less this year. Do you think it's because there's a solar up there? And the short answer is yes. They do. They do re-radiate heat quite easily. There's not much thermal mass there like you would have in a TPO or a Firestone style of roof. So they do reduce the heat gain, and yes, since they are basically UV blockers, they do reduce the impact of UV degradation on your roof membrane.
So I don't see hands up, but one of the last things that I'll say is that we are looking, and we talked to Steve and his group about ensuring that there is connectivity to our monitoring system and our public display boards, and output that can be tied into those, when we walk in, those boards right there in the lobby. So the goal there is to have information that talks about our energy use, and also watch the meter, watch the dial as you're in the early summer. Or what's really cool is he was talking about light snowfall, and you sort of see that it's low, and then as the day goes on, it's really starting to tick up as things melt. So I think it's going to be an exciting, very dynamic display for our lobby to watch the energy gains. So the next topic is more, I'm going to stop showing, is just a question that we've been talking to Solar Design Associates about, is what's this going to cost us, right? And, we have, oh, by the way, I meant to ask this, when we go back to the unit cost per kilowatt hour, are we using the DC rated, or are you using the output rated, Steve?
So we're using the DC rating of the rooftop. That's what all your system costs are driven by, or that's how they're estimated.
Okay. So, so now let's, factors affecting cost. I think it would be helpful to let people know, we bid this, we're not looking for the lowest cost, we're looking for the best value. And that's going to be through a process, and we're not going to get into it today, but how the documents are put together. And we have our legal counsel will guide us in the whole thing. But a higher output panel may be actually cheaper too, depending on what the market's driving those days, right? You never know till you bid it.
Yeah, correct. The higher wattage module, it gets you the least, the lowest cost per man hour to do your installation, because every time they lift and place a module, if they're placing a 495 instead of a 470, that the cost per man hour there is different. So from a general perspective, it makes the most sense to install the biggest system the first time rather than the smallest and the cheapest. And that's one of the things we're doing here is by controlling the aspects of the equipment specified, we're helping ensure that that Belmont gets the highest quality from a material perspective. Because we've seen this in the past when a project goes out to bid with a very thin set of bid documents that just says put solar here with a couple rectangles on a roof, and the contractors come back with modules with a data sheet and the ink is still drying. The UL listing is written in Sharpie, but it's the cheapest bid, so the town is obligated to go with it. By eliminating that possibility, we inject as much quality into the front end of this as possible, so everybody's happy at the end.
So if I'm going to put you on the spot, but what do you expect if we're going out in the summer, rough range of where you're seeing your projects coming in now per kilowatt in this type of installation, over a megawatt on a flat roof?
Yep. So we this past calendar year we built a system about half this size on a roof in Johnston, Rhode Island, and I think the final turnkey cost came in at just over $2 a watt. The advantage of this system is obviously its scale, so we're double the size, so that helps quite a bit. One of the detractors of this particular site is the array is actually quite broken up. So from a contractor's perspective, they're probably going to look at this and say, well, it's not actually a megawatt roof. It's three 300 kilowatt systems, or each roof is considered kind of its own system because they have to mobilize for each one. So if this was a contiguous rectangle at 1 megawatt, it would be a little bit cheaper than the megawatt we're looking at here. But I did do a little bit of digging this afternoon and yesterday for system costs, and fortunately and coincidentally, the incentive program in the state, the Solar Massachusetts Renewable Target, run by the DOER, they actually keep a database of systems that have applied for, been accepted into, and have been built. And so I took a sampling of 1 megawatt rooftops, and it's not perfect because they're not all built yet, and some installers didn't report system costs, but the average across the whatever it was 16 to 20 systems was I think $1.86. So I do expect this to come in at under $2.
So I'm going to do a quick math here. If we have 1.1 megawatts, and let's just say we go with the higher panel, so that's going to be 5% more. That's 1.15, and it's that's 2.3 million. and with contingency and so forth that you might want to have on there. It looks like our budget of 2.6 is good. We are actually probably more like 2.5 now because we are paying for design, your design services out of our total PV budget. But, we carved that out of the bid. But, and by the way, when you talk about those costs, those are usually design, procure, and construct too. So all of that's usually in that cost.
Correct, yes.
Yeah. So committee members, this is, I'm not, knocking on wood, I'm here. This is not a shocker, saying that, boy, we're in trouble. It'd go back to Ellen. It sounds like we could be comfortably bidding this with maximizing the roof in our budget. So that's about as far as we could go right now in cost, other than to say the money that we put aside for this PV looks like we can maximize the roof as originally planned and look at a baseline and probably improving the quality of panels too. Ellen, you have your hand up, or no, you don't.
Yeah, I was just wondering what they're seeing in terms of what's happening with pricing. Have the supply chain stuff been hitting it? Just sort of curious what's going on out there. And in terms of timing, us going now.
Yeah, it's been difficult to draw a consensus on that. We've had some projects where something as simple as a 600 amp panel board has a 50-week lead time, but then other projects where the material is readily available. Difficult to predict, but there certainly has been an impact. Steel and aluminum prices are rocking up. One of the advantages we can build into this is instead of copper home run wiring from the inverters down to the point of interconnection, we can include a wiring table for aluminum conductors, which will almost always have a cost savings, and we don't lose any quality necessarily with that. So we haven't yet seen a project die because a contractor can't get material, but on occasion they do have to switch. A project out for a school in Springfield, the contractor submitted on a particular racking system. We approved it, and that racking manufacturer pushed their delivery date 3 times. So they asked if they could switch to a different racking system. We evaluated it, said, yep, this works, and then adjusted our CD set from there, and the project started moving again. So there's definitely impacts, but it's been spotty and difficult to predict.
So let's use Ellen's question to segue right into the schedule. And Don, you kind of put this together, but I know this had a lot to do with what Steve and the Solar Design Associates gave you. Obviously, the sooner we could get out the bid, I guess, the better. And I want to give first shout out tonight to the Belmont PV group I've been working with, Jonathan Abe, Brian Koppler, and Everett Tatenbaum. They put together, I told you guys last summer, I think I went to you guys, like last summer or last fall, said, I reached out to them. I said, when do you think, we should be pulling the trigger on this? And they suggested we get our design going, our design package shortly after the beginning of the year, which we brought Solar Design on to do, and then getting bid package out this summer. So Donna, it looks like we could actually keep that schedule. You want to do a high level walkthrough with this? I think it's pretty easy to follow.
Sure. No, it's, the blue lines there, I've got 3 places where the top of which is where we are right now, which we indicated are events that need a building committee approval. So we are addressing those issues tonight on this first go around. Okay. So schematic drawings we've had a meeting with the fire department to go through issues that they want to see included in the design of the system. So that's being accommodated in the design at this point.
Hey, Don, I think that meeting included the fire department, Belmont Light, and the electrical inspector. Like that was a really good meeting we already had, and they were able to look at these drawings that Steve put together.
Yeah, Belmont Light was very helpful in that process as well. So, we had a good meeting. Feel that we've got a design here that is acceptable to the building authorities. So SDA is working on enhancing what you were looking at, which is the schematic level of design tonight. And they're going to the next level of documentation right now. So once we do that, we'll review those documents. And as Bill was talking about, looking at taking another vote in June.
June. Yeah, I guess June. Yeah, thinking about June.
Yep, for approving that set of documents to go out to bid. So concurrently at that time, we'll be assembling a bid list and preparing documents for bidding purposes. Once that's done, we will have a period of probably 3 to 4 weeks of actually bidding to the contractors to furnish and install all the panels on the job. We will receive those bids. We will review them, de-scope them, and make a recommendation for an award. And once we get to that point, we'll have one more building committee meeting where we make that recommendation and look for approval to award to the contractor that best presents the best value to the town of Belmont.
And that's this summer. I'd like to see if we can make that award a year from when we complete the project. And you say, well, that's great. Hopefully we'll have panels by Christmas.
Yeah.
Well, Steve, tell us what that really means. You told us, Steve, that we could be talking 6 to 8 months before we could see they have enough of the product pulled together to start the project in Belmont.
And what I've shown here, Bill, is
I think he's on mute.
Yeah. From a material perspective, oddly enough, the panels haven't necessarily been the item that's been holding up projects. It's the AC equipment, so like your disconnects, your panel boards, just simple steel boxes with an aluminum bus bar inside of them for some reason are experiencing some pretty significant delays.
So with that, Don, you put in that time, and it looks like there's about 2 or 3 months of installation time.
I've got a 3-month installation period. We have to make the electrical connections to the base building system, which is ready to receive this, and with the goal of energizing the system in August of 2023.
And just for go ahead, Steve.
We do have a significant time advantage on this particular site compared to other projects that we've worked on in the past and are currently working on. The fact that we're working directly with Belmont Light as a municipal electric utility, the typical process with a project in National Grid or Eversource or Unitil territory, from the day you submit an application to them to the day they say you can build it, it's usually about 6 months. Especially a system of this size, because they have to do these incredibly long, tedious, expensive, what they call impact studies, where they look at what your system will do to their grid from a maximum generation to minimum loading profile. And to the best of my understanding, that's basically already been done by the folks over at Belmont Light. They've already put in infrastructure. They've already planned for this system. So I think the biggest logistics hurdle has already been cleared with the utility. So that's a big thumbs up.
Yeah, and that's really good. So, community again looking to say, how soon? I've seen that. We want to get these turned on as soon as possible. We are hopefully going to be done by the time we turn the building over a year from this summer in 2023. And that'll all depend on the availability of the product and how fast. I doubt that we'll be doing it in the winter. There's a lot of problems with that anyways, with this roof that we have. So maybe we could be hopeful that early spring we start construction, but we'll have to see how that goes. So that's the schedule. I don't know if committee members have comments. I want to keep moving on this, but we'll keep track of that schedule. And like I said, there's two more, Don said, there's two more approvals for the building committee on this topic. The next thing here is as a quick overview of the bidding process. I don't want to get too much into the weeds here, but that's going to be something that we have to continue to unpack over the next month or so. And what I want to start by saying is this is, we're not going to go through all this, but to say that the list here shows that, we can leave the PV in Skanska's scope as a construction manager, or we can take it out and handle it by the town. If you remember, the building committee voted to take it out and have the town manage it, procure it, and manage the installation. So we used Solar Design Associates. They came out after we made that decision, and we talked with them and we started looking through the details. And when you go through this, the overwhelming opinion is that we should leave the PV under Skanska's oversight as far as managing the process of bidding and construction. However, Solar Design Associates and Skanska said that they would work together to help prepare the bid package with CHA, and as well to help evaluate the bidders for the best value, because again, it's not the lowest cost, it's the best value. I don't know, Don, if there's a reason to kind of go line by line, but what I'd like the committee to do is just ask some questions, because we should either reaffirm we're keeping it out of Skanska's, or vote to put it back in, because we do need to understand that path to start putting the bid documents together, to start doing the research, to start engaging our legal counsel on the legal matters of bidding this, because we are still having to follow public bid laws in Massachusetts, with solar being slightly different than everything else in construction. Kate, you have your hand up.
Oh, I'll hold my question for after. I was for the earlier document.
Okay, Ellen.
Yeah, Bill, you said you were looking to us to advise on whether to keep it, whether to put it back in Skanska or not. I guess I'm a little confused. I know we moved it out because we thought it would be cheaper. So can you explain the rationale for moving that back in, and why is it different than what we thought it would be?
Okay, so yes, there was a savings on the paper right away of $18,000. That's here. Oh, I stopped sharing, so let me share again. And that's still in there. And we did it purely on cost. I would say that we were focused on cost first. So $18,800 here is what this is for cost savings. However, there are other costs we're starting to find out. So we take that and save, but then if we're dealing, if we keep it in Skanska's, they are managing the site. They have control. They have access to the roof. If they're not doing it, our price for building this would mean that the vendor has to provide access to the roof. The vendor has to provide control around their laydown area. The vendor needs to supply the safety oversight and such. And thus, those costs start to build up on the bid side. So, Ellen, that's a good question. So those were the things we started to, as we peel back the layers, we started to realize there is some disadvantages of taking it out of Skanska's court. And those seem to be more compelling when you look at it. Those costs are not significant. 18,000 is big, but we initially thought there'd be 100,000, 6 figures, and it's not, based on the contract we have. So, coordination of installation, having it all under Skanska's court seems a lot better than having us hold something, and then all of a sudden where they go plug into the existing equipment, if something's not right, we got finger pointing going on. There seems to be I'm telling you, you've read through this, I hope at least. there's a compelling reason, well documented here, that we should change our opinion and go back to keeping it under Skanska's purview. With all the input from, no difference on bid conditions, Skanska's working with the team. I don't know if, Don, you want to add anything more here, but I'm hearing the recommendations from our design and construction group that we should keep it with Skanska.
Yeah, and one of the other items that I don't think you mentioned it though is warranties. You know, we've got a roof that we're dealing with that if the installation contractor is under Skanska's control, all the warranty issues remain with Skanska, and same with the electrical equipment that we have to tie into. So the more we've looked at this, the more we see advantages to keeping it within Skanska's scope of work.
Bill, that all makes sense to me. I have, I guess, a question. You said that it looked like $18,000 of savings, and we originally thought it was six figures. Were those six figures part of our contingency refresh? And if so, does that move us in the wrong direction there?
No, the number that went in contingency refresh is the 18,800.
Okay, thanks.
We thought it was six figures when we put it on the list. And then when we got it priced, it wasn't that big. Kate, you have your hand up.
Yeah, so I guess I am wondering a little bit about the timeline. If we were to go back with Skanska managing this, as I was looking at the timeline, I was wondering, I mean, just being cognizant that every month that we don't get these on the roof, there's, a cost to the town in terms of the utility costs. Where it would be great to realize that benefit as soon as possible. In looking at the timeline, I'm just wondering if it can be pushed up anymore, and if going back with Skanska would risk us extending the timeline as it's proposed now.
So on procurement and installation, there's no difference whether we bid it ourselves or with Skanska as far as the timeline. But I will reinforce the fact that we are pushing this faster than we planned as a building committee. And you saw that we're coming back in 2 months with the bid package to go out. And that's about as fast as you can do to turn it around, bid evaluation, and 6-8 weeks later, you're back for an approval. So Kate, I don't know how much faster, and then we're subject to the market conditions. You know, how fast can the contractor that's been released procure all the material and be ready for construction? So yes, there is an interest to get this energized as soon as possible. We are putting a schedule out there that says it looks like that switch, whoever's going to turn that switch on, might be turning it on the summer of 2023. Hopefully it gets done a bit sooner than that, but we won't know until we have a contractor on board. And the sooner we go out there, I think the better off we'll be as far as being able to grab those products and moving the schedule along. Jamie Shea, you had your hand up and then you just took it down.
I took it down because you answered my question.
Oh, okay. So does the committee feel they have enough information? And I do want to have a vote on this. I want to see if there's a desire to move back to Skanska and supported by the committee. You want to talk about it a little more, or do you feel we just do it as a, I would say, if this is a building like the Chenery School, we do it on our own. But the fact that we have Skanska here and the risk and the other issues that we're hearing about warranty and about safety and site control and access, the $18,800 seems like it'll be that savings will be chewed up with costs that the contractor for the PV will have to deal with. And so I'm not sure we'll end up saving any money in the long run. And I think we're going to have more headaches in the end. So I'm the one who put that out there for the contingency refresh. I'm the one who was supporting it back then. Thanks to our team with solar design input and all their experience. You hear they have a lot. It seems like this is a better path for us to go.
Bill, I move we put it back under Skanska.
It's Pat, I second.
Any other comments or questions from committee?
It sounds like you're very certain that that we anticipate any cost changes, that we're really truly going to be able to even out there.
Absolutely. What I'm hearing, just one issue of warranty we have to deal with on a roof could turn into a mess. A leak, who's at fault? Kate, it's 18,000 is a lot of money, but then when you look at this project and you look at the risk, I have to say that probably wasn't the best decision we made, but we were in a mode back then, and I know I was driving the ship of finding things that seemed to be the right thing at the time. This looked like we made the decision in haste, and I apologize for leading the committee down that path. But this, I hope you read this pros and cons sheet of 11 items or 12 really identifies the better solution, which is Skanska, as the motion was made and seconded.
Bill, one question on that. Did we officially take it out of Skanska's contract and therefore have to pay like change orders to put it back in?
So interesting you bring that up. We have not executed a change order for that. And it has been driven by, we're still working through the warranty issues that we were talking about. Well, if we take it out, where's the document, but who's responsible for roofing? And so I should say the roofing warranty. So that's one of the other drivers. It's just still much better to leave it all in one place, as Bob said. I'm sorry, as Don said. Okay, sounds like we had it voted and seconded. So motion made, second. So I'm going to call the vote. Patrice Garvin?
Yes.
John Phelan?
Yes.
Nat Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes.
Joel Mooney?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Oh, and I.
Jamie Shea?
Yes.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Mike McAllister? Oh, Mike had to leave. He told me that. Thank you, Mike. Alan Schreiber?
Yes.
Bill Lavallo, yes. Thank you. So, moving along, I know it's getting late, but I wanted to hear from some Belmont residents at this point. We went through the presentation. I know we had some hands up. We still have a good deal of participation, almost no one left. So I guess either there's nothing good on TV tonight or we're really capturing the audience. So Richard Tenney, you have your hand up, your first one. Welcome.
Goodness. Oh, can you hear? Okay, it says I'm unmuted. Yes, I have two things that I'm wondering about. One is under the warranty. It's only as good as the company standing behind it. How do we know which of these companies is going to be here in 25 years? And if they're not, what do we fall back on? And the second one, I might as well get it out here while I've got my finger on the space bar. The installation, are there critter guards? Because I've heard of animals building nests under these things and chewing through wires and having problems from that. One of the cures for which is to put some sort of netting around that keeps them from living underneath the panels. But those are my two questions.
Two questions. I could say that with confidence here at this roof at 68 feet, unlike our house roofs where I know my squirrels in the yard like to climb over the roof and scamper through the gutters, there are no animals getting to this roof. There are no animals getting up to this roof. There are no wires up there. So pretty sure, Steve, you would agree with that from Solar Design that this is not a risk like you would on a home installation where animals may be chewing through wires.
I've seen a bald eagle right on the corner, by the way.
Okay, well, that's different. And okay, so then you got the eagles. But Steve, I don't know how much, I do know that when you get closer into Boston, you've got seagulls dropping shells on these things, we like to break them. We don't really have that out here in Belmont. So I think the risk is small, Steve.
Yep, that was exactly what I was going to say, is the only critter risk or damage we see on these commercial rooftops is from seagulls. Every year we go and do O&M on the system on the Mass Maritime building down in Bourne, and it's littered with quahog shells and crab claws and what have you. So we're far enough away from the salt water that I don't expect that to be a problem.
And the other comment was just the warranty, and I can say that, or the firm, one of our evaluations will be the integrity of the firm. When we dig and get bids, we're also looking at product, right, Steve? And you're evaluating the bid on the best value to Belmont, and those qualifications will be in our bid to make sure that we're looking at all that. It's not just the lowest cost.
Yep, so that is correct. So yeah, so we can even build it into the bid specs in terms of how long has the company been operating, what are their contingencies for maintaining their installation warranties should something happen, and then also from the warranty perspective of the equipment, that's one of the reasons we recommend purchasing attic stock, particularly modules. I'm sure if you go into the Wayback Machine, I'm sure most of us remember a company called Evergreen Solar, which was a near and dear to Massachusetts, and they had to declare bankruptcy after deploying a lot of modules throughout the state, so yeah, it's a challenge in the industry that there hasn't been a really good answer for yet. It's if a module manufacturer just decides that they're not going to be part of the industry anymore and moves or just closes up shop, there hasn't been a good answer yet, other than being ready with attic stock.
Okay, thank you.
Bill, there is a good answer, and I'm amazed in this industry there isn't bonded solar panels, as everyone is familiar with bonded roofs.
I don't know anything about bonded solar panels.
Well, there should be. That's the answer.
Oh, okay. I see what you're saying. Well, not enough lobbyists, maybe. Well, there are probably tons of lobbyists. I don't know. Hey, Brian Eiler, you've been waiting patiently. Hello.
Yes, thank you. I just want to say I'm thrilled to be listening to this, the meeting and all the details, and really appreciate the time and energy that everyone spent on this, because it's wonderful to see this moving forward. Mr. McLaughlin, I think there might be a business opportunity in terms of bonding solar panels. So you might want to look into that as a profitable money-making venture. But I know that, again, I'm thrilled with the meeting up to this point. I know we're going to be discussing paying for it in the second part of the meeting. Is that in fact going to happen? And if so, I guess that's where our concern would be.
Okay, so the question is, are we going to discuss paying for it? We discussed the budget with the costs are within our budget that we have put aside. So I don't know anything else that we have to talk about tonight in regards to paying for it.
Well, you do have an agenda item about alternative funding.
That's not for this. It is, but as I said, we have full funding in this. That's a different topic. So we're talking about a budget that we have set aside that seems to be appropriate for where the industry is right now for the costs. So we have the money in our budget. However,
fantastic.
What we will be talking, just a little preview, is that there could potentially be an opportunity to save the taxpayers' money with alternative funding sources, and that's what we'll talk about. But I wanted to break that apart, Brian, just for that reason, to make it super clear that we have the money to fund it 100% ourselves.
Great. All right. Again, more good news. Really appreciate it. I'm enjoying this meeting more than I've enjoyed all the other building committee meetings up to this point. So thank you so much.
So you'll tune in again. I like to hear that. Okay. Brian Koppler, again, thank you for your help. You've been, you and as I said, and Jonathan and Everett have been assisting me. I'm not this knowledgeable on my own. I get a lot of coaching. You're one of my coaches, so thank you.
Appreciate it, Bill. And can you hear me okay?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Great. And just a quick question for Solar Design Associates, just going back to Mr. McLaughlin's question. Can you, think down the road, 10 years down the road, and let's just say, you had a panel replacement need and the warranty is not stood up because the company went out of business. Could you replace with another panel from a different manufacturer at that point?
Fortunately, yes. 4 or 5 years ago, you couldn't really do that very effectively. But changes in the National Electric Code now require module-level power electronics to satisfy what's called rapid shutdown on rooftops. And those module-level power electronics allow us, from a design and engineering perspective, to basically mix and match if we needed to. It's very advantageous for when you're trying to maximize a roof, because it allows you to put modules in areas where normally you wouldn't, because maybe they're partially shaded by a vent pipe, and a couple code cycles ago when these electronics weren't required, that shaded module would have a deleterious impact on its neighbors that it's wired to. So that the best practices has changed a bit with these electronics. And yeah, we do see that on legacy systems that are 5-10 years old, where a module does break. I actually just flew one of our sites with our infrared drone, the Danvers Indoor Sports, and we did pick up. There were 3 broken modules up there. So we're searching for replacements right now that have a similar form factor that can be swapped in for the broken ones.
That's great. Okay, and that'll be part of this design and what you'll put out in the RFP, and so everyone will know that they'll be designing in that accordance. Yeah.
Yeah, correct. That's included in the basis of design.
Wonderful. And then just trying to understand you had particulars on panels and pricing, estimates, and I'm just curious, how is the RFP going to work in terms of, if an EPC firm comes and says, well, we've got a different panel, which, is a better value overall and the price is attractive. I'm assuming you're going to be open to different panel manufacturers than the ones you've put on the list there, those initial 3. Is that right?
That is the intent. The goal is to, the baseline is that Hanwha Q cells with the other alternates. We see this on occasion. We have the advantage here that our timeline is compressed a bit, but on other projects that we work with an architecture team, they usually have a 2-year gestation period, and so the panels and equipment we specified at year 1 or at year 0, by the time the project's bid at year 2, they're just not available. So the contractors will come back and say, well, yeah, these panel A wasn't available, but I can get panel A1 or A2, evaluate those and let me know if those will work. So we expect to be doing that.
Okay.
And that's one of the reasons why we waited to bid this, so we didn't have that. I do, Brian, want to let you know that we're not going to dig into the bidding options because that's in June. We haven't put all that together, but we're going to get detail into the alternatives. We're going to have that in the spec, and we're going to review that with our town council to make sure that the process through public bid. And I have to say, we haven't even confirmed what law we're using. You saw there's 30B, 25, it's just, we have to unpack that yet and look at what's most advantageous. So I want to hold a deep discussion on bidding options until we're well versed in that, which will be more like June.
I just wanted to encourage, to give a little bit of flexibility, because I think there's a lot of relationships and supply chains that individual companies have, and they may come at you, with different manufacturers that could be interesting and attractive overall. So anyways, just wanted to put that out there, but for later on.
Awesome. What do you think, guys? I think we got the right solar design experts on our team, huh? Got the A team. Francesca, you have your hand up.
Yes, thank you. I am a senior at the high school, and I first just wanted to say thank you so much for working so hard on this project for the last 2 years, and also for your support with the solar panels. And I also just wanted to stress to you, or just reassure you, that the students will play their part in ensuring zero net energy at the high school with the help of the solar panels. So thank you.
Thank you. I heard that before. I think in some of our visioning in the very beginning, Vital, we had students, we had parents, we had teachers, and this was part of the topic, right? So it's not new, and it's repeating itself, and it's awesome. So the next time, I don't see any more hands from public, so I want to move into our next, and we're going to go over 2 hours. I kind of knew that tonight. I don't think there's any big games on tonight, which is good to compete. But I do have this next topic, which is important if our building committee folks want to continue. And, does the building committee want to pick up a vote at this time to commit to installing PV on this project roof? We've heard a lot about this for a while, but we weren't in a position to really make a commitment for a few reasons. One, 4 months ago, we were struggling with a budget. We had to make sure that we had the proper funds, and we've done that. Pat yourselves on the back. We've done that well. But then we also didn't know what it was going to cost. We have a budget, but is maximizing the roof going to be within our budget? And we heard today from our experts that it seems reasonable that we should expect that. And so I know for one, I'm a lot more comfortable now than I was 6 months ago to say, with confidence that we're getting this done. It was always our hope. 2016, we were at this game, but some realities hit us, and we had to. But we persevered. We had value engineering. We had this, and we had that. And people said, "Why are you putting PV on that?" Well, we want to make sure that everyone knows that everything's there. But we left it there. Everything was on the list, but we left it there. We never took it off and said we're cutting it. So at this point, we have a budget. We have costs. We have allowance set in our budget. I'm comfortable. I don't know what other committees are of considering a motion. Jamie, you have your hand up. Go right ahead.
Yes, I would please, please, please love to have a motion to commit to putting PV on the roof. So if you want me to make a motion, I can make a motion if you want to let other people talk, but I would be 100% in favor of that.
Well, before we get into legal, the letters of the motion, I just wanted to hear from committee members. Ellen, I mean, you guys have been voicing your opinion for a long time, but it'd be nice to hear what your thoughts are, Ellen.
Yeah, so I'm absolutely 100% in favor of putting PVs on the roof. I don't understand what a vote would do. I think that the only vote that matters is the vote to send it out to bid and the vote to award the bid. And we're in, it feels like we are moving as quickly as possible to doing that. We're not talking about doing something, setting a policy of what we want to do a year in advance or something like that. I don't understand what the purpose of a vote is when we're going to have a vote in 2 months to send it out to bid.
Well, we heard. You got a point there. So we'll hear from other committee members. Maybe it's not necessary. Kate. By the way, just Ellen, I wasn't even comfortable with even taking a vote 6 months ago.
I know.
All I'm saying now is we could do that. It seems that we have a path. It seems that this is a reality. Obviously, we have to be able to afford it when it comes in. So there's some, whatever it is. But we're hearing that the industry is still pretty firm in the cost that we had budgeted in 2018, which is amazing. I mean, war, COVID, feel like I don't even know how it's doing it, but I guess it's that type of de-escalation on the product with a lot more competitors out there that's making this more cost effective with all those factors involved. So Kate, give your hand up.
Oh, I have no problem taking a vote. I think we have taken votes
Oh, Kate, hold that thought until your connection gets back. Bob, you want to go in and then we'll let Kate come back.
I just kind of have the same feeling that Ellen does. I mean, from day one, and you've said it's 5 times tonight, since 2016, it's been the overriding intention to have solar panels on this roof. And maybe as a PR purpose, but I just don't quite know what the vote does. So.
Okay, Tom, I'm going to stay with some committee members right now with their hands up.
Yeah, I mean, I think Bob and Ellen both make a good point in that this committee has said for years that it was our intent to put PV on the roof. And in some sense, I think this committee ourselves may feel like it isn't necessary to take this vote because we've endorsed this time and time again. I do think, though, within the community, there has been some concern in recent months in particular that maybe we were wavering in our conviction to it. And I think I'm supportive of us taking a vote to sort of reaffirm to anyone watching or anyone paying attention that it remains our intent and that we're moving with all sort of due speed to get PV up on that roof, as we always said we would. So I appreciate that it feels slightly redundant to some committee members, but I'm personally very much in support of us taking a vote.
So Tom, you're saying the vote is to reaffirm our commitment, just on a vote.
Correct. I mean, I think we can figure out how exactly we frame it, but yes, I think the vote could be very much to sort of just reaffirm our commitment. And I understand procedurally it may not be required, but I think it has a symbolic significance that I endorse.
Patrice, you have a hand up.
Yep, thanks, Bill. I just want to say, and I don't speak for the select board, I know the select board is very much in favor of PV on the roof, and they would support a motion like this. I know that Mark Polillo, the chair of the select board, is on, and I hate to put Mark on the spot, but I think it's important to hear.
Patrice, you just did, okay.
Well, I hate to speak for the board, so I do know that the board is very much in support of this, and there's Mark. So I don't know, Bill, if you want to recognize Mark.
I'm going to recognize Mark. Mark, welcome, by the way.
Thank you, Bill. I'm not quite dressed for prime time. I was traveling today, but I agree with the town administrator in that taking a vote, I think is important. The community is looking for that, as Tom indicated. Tom eloquently talked about this commitment to PV. I know you wavered from it. I always thought that it was these committees' intent to put PV on the roof, but taking a full, recommitment vote on that would be terrific, and I think it would show the community. In fact, we are going to move forward with this. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. Joel, you have your hand up.
Thanks, Bill. I guess what I'd like to propose to maybe make some sense out of this is that we have a motion that catalogs some of the discussions that we went over the last, well, a half an hour, 45 minutes, and that basically we've approved the basis of design. We are going to direct our consultant to prepare bid documents at the time frame laid out by Don, with the intent of, putting this out to bid at such and such a time and potentially making an award at whatever time is on the schedule. I think that would make would that make a little bit more sense?
And maybe we could generalize that, but I think it's just reaffirming our commitment, Joel, and the process still has to play out, right? The legal process and that we have to have the funds, right, to do all that.
But we're committing to taking the steps.
Oh yeah, and we're going to do it. That's for sure. Kate, did you still have your hand up? Did you know that? Oh no, you froze. I'm sorry, you're back. Welcome back. Oh, come on, Kate, you froze again. Well, let's do this. Kate, you're still freezing.
Kate, shut your video off and just go with your audio.
There you go. Let's
Can
try
you
it
hear
now,
me
Kate.
now?
Absolutely, much better.
Oh, fantastic. Okay. So I caught most of what was said. I tried to switch to Wi-Fi's, but I do think the community would appreciate an affirmative vote in some form. And I do want to, for those folks talking about policy, I'm happy to share the school committee's policy, which I think, even though it's from 2009, is still germane to our decisions. And I'll just quickly read, if you would allow me, to say that Belmont Public Schools shall promote the wise use of energy, water, and other natural resources. To this end, the district shall support conservation and efficiency in its use of electricity, gas, oil, water, and other resources, maintain and enhance present resource conservation measures, and develop initiatives to make infrastructure improvements that take advantage of technological advances that conserve resources. Also, which may happen in the future, work to educate staff and students about the benefits of and opportunities for resource conservation and the use of alternative sources of energy. So thank you to the people in 2009 who had the forward thinking to adopt such a policy that we might benefit from today. And I just would want to acknowledge, similar to what we went through and just learning about new technology, it might seem a little bit scary to make this kind of commitment, but climate change is one of the biggest threats to kids today when we talk about taking care of kids. And I think this affirmative vote would go a long way to supporting our students. This is truly the plate on which we serve the educational aspirations that we are all in the endeavor of doing. So I would support a vote to affirm our Z&E goals and to install the solar panels.
Thank you, Kate. I'm gonna just go to something here that I worked on with some committee members, and it's some language listening to you. Let me share this. It's a little more broad in that we're not getting into particulars. We're not talking about the capacity because we want to maximize the capacity. It's reaffirming our commitment, so I'll read it. It is moved that the committee reconfirm its commitment to take all legal steps available to complete the construction of the middle and high school building with a photovoltaic array on the roof of the building, consistent with the design as shown on the original building plans. There was a reason I had that image up at the start of our building committee meeting, because that was what was shown as the plans, maximizing the new roof, the flat roof for our building with PV. So this vote is fairly generic in it that it's consistent with what we're saying, but it actually reaffirms what we've been doing. And the legal steps is, the public bid laws, the funding and all that. We have the funds, so that seems reasonable. We can't afford more than we have, so we'll have to work within that budget. But we heard today that all conditions suggest that we will be able to maximize the roof and come very close. Well, we'll be getting the 30% of our usage at nearly 1.3 megawatts of production. So how does the committee feel about that? And this is a live document, so I could edit it if there's interest to change. I would caution putting a lot of detail in something like this and trying to get it approved tonight. Kate?
So the array is part of a design strategy, and so I wondered if there's a way to acknowledge that in your motion. That is an energy design strategy.
Okay. How's that? So we're putting with a photovoltaic array on the roof of the building as an energy design strategy consistent with the design as shown on the original building plans.
Sounds good.
I've quieted the building committee.
Bill, it's Tom. I'm comfortable endorsing that and happy to move that motion.
This is Ellen. I'll second.
Okay, are there any more edits before I go down roll call voting? Please turn your mics on. I'm going to read it one more time because we have a motion and we second it. It is moved that the committee reconfirm its commitment to take all legal steps available to complete the construction of the middle and high school building with a photovoltaic array on the roof of the building as an energy design strategy consistent with the design as shown on the original building plans. Patrice Garvin?
Yes.
Approve? Yes. John Phelan?
Yes.
Pat Bruce?
Yes.
Diane Miller?
Yes.
Tom Caputo?
Yes.
Joel Mooney?
Yes.
Kate Bowen?
Oh, and I.
Jamie Shea?
Yes.
Bob McLaughlin?
Yes.
Chris Messer? Oh, we lost Chris again. Okay, we lost Mike McAllister. Ellen Schreiber?
Yes.
And Bill Lovallo? Yes. Thank you. We're not going to finish our meeting tonight, but I want to go through one component which is pretty critical, I think, and that is the alternate funding considerations. And I did say a little earlier that this was had to do with photovoltaic. This is something we may consider as a committee in parallel path to maintaining the funding that we have today, to see if there's a viable option to reduce the cost burden to the taxpayers. Thanks to work from, again, the Belmont group, Brian Koppler, I think, made first connection with a firm, but Everett, I know, and Jonathan, you've been part of that. There is an opportunity possibly that the building committee could realize a savings by bringing in a partner for funding.
Bill,
Yes.
Bill, I don't want to interrupt you, but Bob McGaw's had his hand up for a period of time here now.
Oh, I know he did, but we had committee comments. Okay, so you know what, Bob? If I'll open it up. Just about. Go right ahead, Bob. Yes, you've had it up next to your walkie there.
No, thank you. At least it's nice to have a chance to talk after you voted. The reason I was going to tell you that it's important to vote to commit to do the PV on the building is because people in Belmont believed the town when it promised a zero net energy project. It's important that you commit to it. Weasel words in a motion like you just passed don't help people feel confident. And there are two more big projects coming down the road, the library and the rink. It's extremely important that people in Belmont believe and can trust that the promises made will be delivered on. That's why I was hoping your motion would not be diluted with phrases like using every legal avenue available or whatever it was. Just a simple statement. We commit to doing the photovoltaics as promised. And you will find that everybody will take a big breath and now take a giant step back and let the committee do its work. Notice how many people tuned in tonight. They're all concerned that you're backing away from the commitment.
Okay, well, thank you, Bob. I think there's two sides to every opinion, and I think
Bill, let me just say this. I'm surprised that a lawyer objects to having the word legal in the actions that we take.
So, okay, guys. But I think that most of the people on this call will agree that this is a great move by the committee to reaffirm our commitment. We have to abide by our obligations legally, and that's just what we're saying here. This, as Kate said, let's add, we had an energy design strategy. We added that in. So we're doing everything. We're energy design strategy, following legal matters that we have to, and we'll get the PV on the roof. I don't see anybody walking away after all the time we spent today saying, boy, they just still don't think that they're going to put it on the roof. But that's my opinion. So let's talk about people that do this all the time. Collective Sun is one group that takes and helps groups like us that are non-for-profit and helps reduce the burden of the cost. Because if we were a homeowner, like most of you listening, you could take your tax credits and reduce the cost, but we can't do that, right? But here's a group that actually says, well, we'll buy, we'll pay for and install and own the PV on the roof, and we'll use those tax credits and the depreciation of that to offset the cost, and we'll share with you the savings. We'll keep a little money ourselves, but you're going to pay less. And this group in 6 years turns it back to the town. Okay, so 6 years, not 20, not 25, 6 years. In those 6 years, they pay for all the maintenance. In those 6 years, they never touch the electricity that it makes, still goes to the town. In those 6 years, they never touch the RECs. That goes to the town. So I scratch my head and I said this to Brian Koppler. I said, Brian, well, yeah, how does this work? And it works very interestingly by, again, the group here is just looking to help the financing of organizations such as ours, churches and other things, and recognizes that those tax credits are going to waste if we don't have an independent group like this. So they're allowing us to own it, unlike other entities where they're taking the energy and they're giving something back. And the question is, we're not selling this because there's a lot of work to be done here. Is this something that the committee thinks that they would like to see pursued a little further? In other words, not commit to it, but there's a lot of work that has to go in to see if this is something that could be done. They work with schools. This is not new to them. Okay. This particular group is out in California. They're doing projects in Massachusetts. I had the opportunity to take the salesperson on the roof. He looked around and said, there's nothing on the roof. Apparently he walks on roofs that has things on the roof. We said, no, of course there's not anything on the roof. We planned this thing 6 years ago to be like this. And he was just blown away. He says, I've never seen anything like this. He says, usually I'm looking at systems that we have to work around, and so the story here is that we're a compelling group, and he could take this to his board that approves the funding and potentially save. You say, well, what's the savings, Bill? At our cost at around 2.5, 2.6 million that we heard today, we're talking about a number that's between $300,000 and $400,000. So it's not small. And that money is just tax, that's savings to the taxpayers, right? So this group will allow us to continue with solar design. They're happy we're doing the design. This group will work with Skanska as the contractor. They're fine with that. Skanska's holding the contract. This group will allow us to bid and choose the most advantageous firm that's going to install solar for Belmont. We make that decision. The difference is before we commit to the subcontractor, they get involved, and they're the ones who sign the contract with the subcontractor, or for this matter, Skanska, and they go ahead and then pay for that, all that installation and the 6 years of maintenance. So, how does this work? We got to dig into it. Are there roadblocks? Maybe. We'll have to talk to quite a few groups. We'll have to talk to the school committee, because this will involve a lease on the building, just like any other entity that owns something. So it'll be a short-term lease that we'd have to develop. We'd have to talk to the MSBA for sure. Talk to them, make sure there's no change to our project funding agreement with this. We'll have to talk to the IG, I think, and work with that group to see if we have to bid this out to multiple firms. Very likely, we just can't hand it to this, right? It's taxpayer. We'll have to have an RFQ process, a qualification process to select. We have time. We have till the summer, so we have time. We'll talk to town council too. We'll definitely talk to town council. So questions from committee members. Granted, I don't need to take on any more work, but there's a lot of zeros on the 6 figures here, so it's not something we probably want to just brush aside. Bob, the lawyer, that would help. You're on mute. Bob, you're on mute.
I was saying, this is terrific. It's very creative. All the tax credits can do the town of Belmont no good because it doesn't pay income tax returns. And this firm obviously is going to sell these credits. They're going to make a profit, but we're going to get this a half of the savings, however it gets negotiated. A lot of legal work in this. I will work with you. I'll be glad to work with you. Town council has to play a big role in this. There has to be some thinking outside the box to get this done, because they have to actually get the depreciation also. So they actually have to be an owner. So there's a lot to it, but there's so much money involved. We have to pursue this. And when you're looking for a motion, I would make the motion that you pursue this and explore it. And then when it's in focus, bring it back before the whole committee.
Just for the committee, I'm not going to take a motion tonight. Again, just wanted to know how much effort we put in here before, it sounds like Bob's supporting it. I did already start speaking with town council on this. So there was no shaking of the head on that discussion, but knowing that there's more, a lot more work to be done. So I should have mentioned that too. Kate?
I certainly could support finding more information about it. I'm in your list of collaborators. I'm wondering if Belmont Light is involved in the dialogue, because that seems to be the other party that would need to evaluate the benefits.
Okay, well, again, they don't own it, and the connections and the power and all that still is going through their system, and it's not changing. But we certainly wouldn't leave them out of that conversation for sure. Right? Yeah,
I just recall earlier in our meeting referencing them with the RECs as part of our financial strategy.
Oh, yeah.
So
right. Absolutely. Oh, by the way, Kate, just to be clear again, they're not taking the, like, we still own the Rex. We still get the Rex on this. Yeah, Patrice.
Thanks, Phil. I'm still a little confused on how the money works, but I guess my question is more to do with, given the complexity of setting something that up, how does that work with the timeline to put it out to bid?
So I don't know. We have to look at it. When you say that out to bid, are you talking about the PV or are you talking about, no, this won't affect it. We bid is independently. They don't need to be involved in the bid. They're funding source for the construction and owning it. So they get handed the bidder, the successful bidder, and they get handed a check from we have to pay them, and then they go off and build it. But what we're paying them to do is a lot less than what we would have to pay that vendor. They look at that price, they derate it about 16%, and that's what our savings is. And we take that right away. We don't have to wait 6 years to get it. That stays in our bank. Kate, you still have your hand up.
Yeah, can I ask another quick question? Sorry, turning off the camera so I don't have connectivity issues.
That's a good idea. Yeah.
In working with that entity, are we still bonding with, I mean, is it still the same funds that we are using from our budget? Or is it somehow transfer ownership in that? I'm just wondering about the total financial picture.
Well, it would come out of we're looking ones that are going to be paying for the PV just like we were before. We already have the funds. The question we will have for MSBA is, does that affect our project funding agreement? We have to unpack that, and I'm pretty sure they probably haven't had this question come to them, but we'll see. Tonight was just to see if there was any objection to this, and so far I haven't heard. There's speculation, just like I have it. I'm convinced. Still haven't found where something is lurking underneath that says this isn't as good as it looks, but certainly we just have to go through. Municipals have gone through and worked with this group, I'm told, in Massachusetts, schools, as well as other institutions that are non-tax paying, and they've been around for a long time. And they're telling me their annual is around 60-something million, I think. So we're not a major contributor. Like, they're doing a lot of this. Okay. I could walk away feeling like I know CHA is saying, Bill, you just can't let up, can you? But working with CHA and our team here to start to unpack this, and in the next month, try to get some movement on all these different aspects of it. So that's all I wanted to review tonight on that. I don't think we really have it in us to work on the site contingency refresh and approval unless the committee wants to go to 10. I would like to get it done before our next building committee meeting is a long 2-hour+ business meeting, and this is something we have to wrap up. What does the committee feel like doing?
When do we need to have these decisions made?
Kind of now. Like, I have to figure this out in between town meetings. We have to schedule another night meeting.
So why don't we go ahead and do it instead of scheduling another meeting?
I will start this. Let me just start this and see. Now, the building committee saw what was called a list A of the site, and they said to me, can you go out and go back and talk to those that are operating the site, the fields, the DPW, the athletic director, Dave Blazon, who's not here, and we did that. Okay, and we had a meeting. CHA ran that meeting, and they had some suggestions. They weren't huge, but they were suggestions that says this is all we need for Belmont. Okay, this is what will work well for Belmont. And they made these suggestions. Our design team looked at them and thought they were reasonable. Our contracting team priced them out roughly orders of magnitude. And what I'd like to do is present those to you and see if we can affirm that this is probably a path we'll go. The rest of it will leave. I know there's been a lot of contentions. Oh my goodness, what are you doing changing? Most of that list we're probably not going to touch. But if I could show that list, walk you through it quickly, let's see if there's we could get this done. And I appreciate Ellen, and I also appreciate no one else saying no. Can I add? Well, is Mike Morrison on? No. Okay. I'm going to share this.
Bill, I'm here. I'm sorry. I just had to unmute.
Oh, yes, he is.
Do you want to run this, or do you want me to run it? Or do you want
to? It doesn't matter to me. I'm happy to run it.
Okay. So the thing we have to do is go back and forth. But if you could pull it up and share, and I'm going to have to ask Jeff, can you make Mike Morrison a co-host? You there, Jeff?
I think I could. Could I just hit the share screen button? Will that work?
Yeah, you might be sharing already. Okay, good.
All right, let me see if I can do this. Hold on. All right.
And if you're sharing it, right, I'm going to ask CHA, right? I'm going to ask CHA to go down this list now. It's pretty quick, and talk about the things that we wanted to review with the building committee. And I think the other things we were talking about, maybe not even changing. So the idea here is what we will change. The rest of it just stays as designed.
Can you expand it?
Yep.
Yeah, so zoom in, we don't have to see the whole thing.
You got it. I also have the PDF that we reviewed at the last building committee meeting. I know it's a Perkins of Will document. If we want to flip back and forth, I can.
No, so I have the PDF that I want to show with this for diagrams. If the building committee wants to see a diagram, I have it up and we can flip back and forth. So the masonry backstops so there's a masonry wall that's built behind both softball and baseball. It's the first one. We didn't have that at any of the other fields. We didn't. This is directly behind the batter, and our team said we could do away with that and it'll work. Our site designer said we could do away with it and work. Our DPW and athletic director didn't have an passionate opinion one way or the other with that. So that's a reasonable thing to remove. So is the committee interested in making a decision to delete that from the project? It's about 4 feet tall. It's just behind the batter's box.
Bill, it was not on the old one?
Yes.
We had, so at the Brendan Grant field, and I could show you that. I hope I have that.
I think there wasn't one on the backstop, right? It was
set behind, yeah. So I'm sorry, I'm going to take the sharing away. I'll show you a quick picture. Okay. And so, by the way, I want to thank the school committee for Superintendent Phelan. The school committee took a vote on this on Tuesday, right? The varsity baseball field.
Mm-hmm.
No, we took a vote on Tuesday about the policy itself, and we will be voting this particular item at a very future meeting.
Okay, thank you. So the picture that I'm going to show you here is of the entrance. You see that here? I think I'm sharing, right? And then there's brick. And then as you walked up, there was a wall. And so here's the batter's box, Ellen and the folks, right? And there was no wall there, okay? The wall was behind the bleachers. That's what the wall was, okay? So if I go behind the bleachers, I saw it somewhere, right here, behind the bleachers, if you see that, right? There's the wall, but at the batter's box, and we have a different bleacher setup, so this wouldn't be appropriate. And then at the batter's box, I go back, oops, there we go. So this would be consistent of what we had before, and softball didn't have anything. So it seemed, this they didn't have any objection to doing something like this.
I would recommend taking it off.
Okay. So Mike, we can just put a note there for now. If there's no objection, we'll just move through this quickly. We could go back and visit, but this is one of the recommendations that DPW and athletic director and so forth made. Now, replace outer perimeter concrete sidewalks of baseball field with asphalt. And then there's a few of these in here, and I'm just going to lump all these together with a diagram.
No, you're not sharing the spreadsheet.
I'm not, because I'm sorry. I'm going to not go to the spreadsheet. I just want why I'm having this up. So there was, because the committee's going to know this. Oh well, I guess I took that away. There was a diagram. So all the lots around, the sidewalks around here are concrete right now. And the question is, should they go to asphalt around the perimeter here? And then the interior sidewalks, the interior sidewalks are also concrete. DPW was adamant about them not being just stone, right, Tom? Like
Correct.
They don't, no stone dust, that's bad news, long-term maintenance, all that sort of problem. But they felt very comfortable in that going to asphalt, these interiors. They also didn't have objection, DPW, with the perimeter here along the roadway going to asphalt. Still has granite curb. They want to make sure it was a granite curb. Yes, they said then asphalt is fine. So the spreadsheet that we have has all this broken down into little things. But the question to committee is, we have to leave the sidewalks there around the perimeter because that's how people are walking to and from and into the building from the parking lot. And planning board was pretty adamant about that, but they could change from concrete to asphalt. And then the other thing is for sure, the interior ones could change to asphalt, but they didn't, the DPW did not want to see those go to stone. And so there's various questions. You could pull that up now, Mike Morrison, and there are various comments within that context of those types of things. I don't want to spend a lot of time. We could just do generally, does the committee want to see these change from asphalt to, from concrete to asphalt? And if you add it all up, that number is, Mike, about $30,000 if you move that, yeah, if you did that, right? If you use their, so we're just changing them. We're not.
Absolutely no problem.
Okay.
Aesthetically, what is that going to do? Like, do we have concrete sidewalks else like next to these?
So
because everything else on the other side, everything is concrete.
This is like, imagine Grove Street and the sidewalks around Grove Street. I mean, there's just two different types that you're experiencing. I don't think it's too much of a big deal. But
the interior ones I don't have any problems with. It's the one I'm just curious about aesthetically is the one that's along the roadway.
Yeah, and that's, you know, when you go around town, for the most part, our roadway sidewalks are concrete. That's what you thought. And our schools, they're concrete. And so, you know, maybe there's a reason to keep that. Looking at where that demarcation would change, Ellen, there would not be asphalt at the entrance the entrance loop for the middle school. It would be concrete there.
Bill, can I ask a question? You know, on the site plan that you had put up originally, the design with the solar array on top of the kind of opening image, I don't know if you have that handy, but you know, it shows the field with none of these sidewalks being interspersed and none of the fencing up all around.
Correct. It doesn't have any of that. This is a model, and that just was hard. They didn't have any fences anywhere. I noticed that myself when I was looking at it. But this is a digital model that was created, and I can only imagine it's probably hard to create all the little field stuff.
Yeah, makes sense. So, you know, I support the changes. I also feel fairly strongly that we really do not need paved sidewalks between these fields. I understand that, you know, there's a ADA issue, but the soil is accessible for ADA compliance, and it just feels like overkill to be paving in these tiny little interstices between you know, fencing, which I also think the fencing is a little excessive at this stage.
So we brought that comment up, Tom, right? We definitely pushed on that. And again, the committee asked us to go have a meeting we pushed, and they came back, and I'm reporting what they said. They were very strong about not going to some stone dust or anything, you know, or leaving it without anything, because when you look at it, it'll be rutted because there's only one place for people to walk all the time. That was
natural grass is not considered ADA compliant because things like canes and crutches can and will sink into it. So it is not ADA compliant. You can put an alternative material like a stone dust, but that is the material that Bill just described that Park and Rec and DPW was adamantly opposed to because it picks up and fires, you know, when you run a lawnmower over it, those stones can get picked up